The abandoned space station Outpost 7 drifted silently in the void between two distant stars. Most beings saw it as nothing more than a refueling point, a cold metal shell housing automated systems and empty corridors. But they were wrong. Someone lived there, hidden from every passing ship and maintenance crew. Crystal floated in her favorite observation chamber, her crystalline form refracting the starlight into countless rainbow patterns on the metal walls. She had made this station her home for over 50 years, though none knew of her existence. Her body, composed of translucent crystal formations that pulsed with inner light, could bend both light and energy around her, making her completely invisible to both organic eyes and mechanical sensors. Today, like most days, she watched the automated fuel dispensers work as a small cargo ship docked for refueling. The ship's crew never left their vessel. They had no reason to. The station's systems worked perfectly, thanks in part to Crystal's secret maintenance. She used her natural ability to channel and direct energy to keep the crucial systems running smoothly. As the cargo ship departed, Crystal moved through the station's walls, her crystalline form passing through solid matter as easily as light through glass. She had modified her living space over the decades, creating hidden chambers within the station's structure where she could rest and observe without fear of discovery. In one such chamber, she kept her most precious possession, a small garden of luminous crystal formation she had grown herself. These crystals, though beautiful, were pale imitations of the grand crystal forests that had once existed on her homeworld. Crystal felt a familiar ache as she tended to them, remembering the destruction of her people, the Luminary. The great powers of the galaxy had hunted her kind to near extinction, seeking to harness their natural energy manipulation abilities for weapons of war. Crystal had escaped that fate by hiding aboard a supply ship, eventually finding this abandoned station. Here, she had lived in complete solitude, watching the galaxy's beings come and go, never revealing herself. She moved to the station's main control room, checking the upcoming maintenance schedule. A frown formed across her crystalline features as she noted a new entry. A human engineer was scheduled for extensive repairs next week. Humans were relatively new to space travel, and Crystal had limited experience with them. They seemed different from other species, more curious, more prone to following unusual hunches and intuitions. Crystal began her usual preparation routine, carefully planning which sections of the station to avoid during the maintenance work. She had perfected this dance over the years, staying just out of sight, maintaining her solitude. Yet something felt different about this upcoming visit. A strange vibration in her crystal matrix, almost like anticipation, made her wonder if change was coming. As she drifted through the station's corridors, Crystal caught her reflection in a darkened view screen. Her form sparkled with internal light, each facet of her crystalline body telling the story of her species' artistry and evolution. The Luminary had once been peaceful explorers and artists, using their abilities to create works of incredible beauty. Now, as far as she knew, she was the last of her kind. Crystal turned her attention to the station's external sensors. The endless starfield calmed her, as it always did. She had chosen this lonely existence to survive, but survival wasn't enough anymore. Decades of watching others live, laugh, and form connections had left her with a deep longing she could no longer ignore. Still, she reminded herself of the dangers. Every time she had witnessed beings discover something unique or powerful in the galaxy, their first instinct was to control or exploit it. She had survived this long by remaining unseen, unknown, and untouched. As the station's day cycle dimmed to night, Crystal settled into her garden chamber, her crystal body pulsing with soft light. She wouldn't let this human's visit disturb her routine. After all, what could one human engineer possibly change? She had hidden successfully for 50 years. This time would be no different. If only she knew how wrong she was. Jack Miller wasn't like other maintenance engineers. 20 years of working in space had given him a sixth sense about machines, and something about Outpost 7 felt different the moment he stepped through the airlock. The station hummed with an energy that didn't match its official power readings. He adjusted the tool belt at his waist and ran a hand through his graying hair, watching his small maintenance shuttle complete its automated docking sequence. The station's systems all reported normal function, but Jack hadn't survived 2 decades in deep space by ignoring his instincts. Running initial diagnostic scan, he spoke into his wrist recorder, standard procedure for all maintenance visits. His handheld scanner showed regular power signatures throughout the station, but occasionally it would spike with unusual readings that disappeared before he could analyze them. It was like trying to catch smoke with bare hands. The first few hours passed in routine checks and minor repairs. Jack worked methodically, but his mind kept returning to those strange energy readings. In the life support control room, he noticed something even more peculiar. The systems were running at peak efficiency despite being decades old. It was as if someone had been maintaining them, but the station logs showed no visits between scheduled maintenance. "Well, that's not normal," he muttered, checking the particularly well-maintained power coupling. The wear patterns suggested regular use, but the components looked almost new. Jack pulled out his more sophisticated scanning equipment, designed to detect even the faintest electromagnetic anomalies. The scanner's display lit up with patterns he'd never seen before. Energy seemed to flow through the station's walls in ways that defied standard physics. Jack switched to a different frequency, and for just a moment, he thought he saw a shimmer of light move through the far wall. His heart raced, but years of working in dangerous situations had taught him to stay calm. Instead of running or calling for backup, Jack sat down on a nearby maintenance crate and pulled out his lunch. If something or someone was watching him, he wanted to appear as non-threatening as possible. "You know," he said to the apparently empty room, "I've been doing this job for 20 years, and I've never seen a station maintain itself this well." He took a bite of his sandwich, acting casual despite his pounding heart. "It's almost like someone's been taking care of it." The air seemed to grow thicker with tension, though nothing visibly changed. Jack continued eating, occasionally glancing at his scanner. The energy patterns were shifting, concentrating in the room with him. He'd heard stories from other engineers about strange things in deep space, but he'd always believed there would be a logical explanation when he found one himself. Standing up, Jack walked to his tool case and pulled out an old device he'd modified years ago. It was originally designed to detect microfractures in station hulls, but he'd adjusted it to pick up a broader range of energy signatures. As he switched it on, the device began emitting a soft, pulsing tone. The sound changed pitch as he moved it around the room, rising to almost a musical note when he pointed it toward one particular corner. The air there seemed to shimmer, just for a second, like heat waves rising from hot metal. "I'm not here to cause any trouble," Jack said softly, keeping his voice steady. "I'm just trying to understand. I've never seen anything like this before, and I promise I can keep a secret if I need to." His scanner suddenly erupted with readings, forcing him to shut it off before it overloaded. The temperature in the room fluctuated wildly, and for a brief moment, Jack thought he saw a crystalline shape reflect in the metal wall panels. Before he could process what he'd seen, the station's emergency alarms began blaring. Red warning lights flashed through the corridors, and the computer's automated voice announced a critical failure in the life support systems of Section 7. Exactly where Jack needed to go for his next repair. He gathered his tools quickly, knowing he needed to fix the problem. But as he headed toward the troubled section, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone anymore. Something was watching him, and he had a strange feeling he was about to find out exactly what it was. The life support failure in Section 7 wasn't just bad, it was catastrophic. Jack rushed through the corridors, his boots clanking against the metal floor as warning lights pulsed around him. The station's computer counted down the minutes until oxygen would be depleted in the sealed section. As he reached the main access door, Jack's years of experience told him something was wrong. The failure was too sudden, too complete. He checked his tablet, scanning the system diagnostics. 3 separate systems had failed simultaneously. The odds of that happening naturally were astronomical. Override emergency lockdown. "Authorization Miller 7 Delta," he commanded, pressing his palm against the security scanner. The door slid open with a hiss, and Jack stepped through. He had 15 minutes of oxygen in his emergency suit, more than enough time to fix a standard problem. But this wasn't standard. The moment the door sealed behind him, every system in his suit failed. His oxygen supply cut out, and the emergency lights went dark. Jack found himself trapped in complete darkness, his suit nothing more than dead weight. "Not good," he muttered, trying to stay calm as he felt his breath getting shorter. He fumbled for the manual release on his helmet, knowing he needed to conserve what little oxygen remained in the section. The helmet came off with a click, and he took shallow breaths of the thinning air. That's when he saw it, a soft, bluish glow emanating from the walls themselves. The light seemed to pulse and flow like liquid, creating patterns that shouldn't have been possible on solid metal. As his vision began to blur from oxygen deprivation, Jack saw something emerging from the wall. Crystal watched the human with growing concern. She had caused the system's failure, hoping to scare him away after he'd come too close to discovering her. But now he was dying, and for the first time in 50 years, she faced a choice: maintain her secrecy or save a life. The decision took less than a second. Jack's vision was darkening around the edges when the air suddenly felt fresher. The emergency lights flickered back to life, and he gulped in deep breaths of sweet, oxygen-rich air. As his vision cleared, he found himself staring at something impossible. Floating before him was a being made of living crystal, its form constantly shifting and refracting light. The creature was roughly humanoid in shape, but its body was composed of transparent crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light. Energy flowed through it like blood through veins, creating a mesmerizing display of color and movement. "You're what I've been sensing," Jack said softly, careful not to make any sudden moves. "You've been maintaining this station." Crystal moved closer, her crystalline form casting rainbow patterns across the walls. She had never revealed herself to anyone before, but something about this human's calm reaction gave her courage. She focused her energy, creating a small display of dancing lights in the air between them, her species' traditional greeting. Jack watched in amazement as the lights formed patterns that somehow conveyed meaning. He understood she was asking why he wasn't afraid. "I've always believed there was more to this universe than we understand," he replied, slowly standing up. "And anyone who maintains machinery as carefully as you do can't be all that." A sound like wind chimes filled the air. Crystal was laughing. Though she hadn't made a sound in decades, she moved her crystalline hands, and the station's systems came back online one by one, working better than they ever had before. "You caused the failure," Jack realized, but there was no accusation in his voice. "You were trying to protect yourself." Crystal's form dimmed slightly, an expression of regret. She hadn't wanted to harm him, only to maintain her solitude. But now that he had seen her, there was no going back. She created another pattern of lights, more complex this time, beginning to tell her story. Jack sat down on a nearby maintenance crate, his tools forgotten. "I'm listening," he said quietly, and for the first time in 50 years, Crystal began to share her tale with another living being. Over the next few days, Jack continued his scheduled maintenance work on the station, but now with an extraordinary difference. Crystal accompanied him, invisible to any external cameras but fully visible to him, helping with repairs and showing him hidden systems she had created over the decades. "This is incredible," Jack said, watching as Crystal effortlessly redirected power through pathways that didn't exist on any official station blueprints. Her crystalline body glowed with a soft blue light as she worked, her energy manipulation abilities making complex repairs look like art. During their breaks, Crystal would create detailed light displays, telling Jack about her people's history. The Luminary had once been peaceful explorers, using their abilities to help other species harness clean energy. But when the galactic powers discovered they could amplify weapons with luminary crystals, everything changed. "They hunted you," Jack said quietly, watching the light patterns that showed starships attacking crystal cities. They didn't care that you were peaceful. They just wanted weapons. Crystal's form dimmed in response. A gesture Jack had learned meant sadness. She showed him how she had hidden aboard supply ships, drifting from station to station until finding this abandoned outpost. Here, she could use her abilities to maintain the systems without discovery, watching life pass by, but never participating. On his fourth day, Jack arrived with a surprise. He pulled a small package from his tool bag and unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a collection of old paper books, real ones, not digital. "I thought you might like these," he said. "They're stories about Earth, about humans. Since you've shared your history with me, it seemed fair to share mine." Crystal's form brightened with excitement. She had watched humans from afar, but never understood their stories. She reached out with a crystalline hand, her touch gentle as she lifted one book. The pages ruffled slightly as energy coursed through them. "I need to report something to maintain my maintenance schedule," Jack said, checking his tablet. "But I can make it look like there's enough work to justify daily visits for the next month, if you'd like that." The crystal being created a complex pattern of lights that Jack now recognized as happiness. She had spent so long hiding, watching others from shadows, that having someone to talk to, someone who saw her true self, felt like waking from a long dream. As Jack worked on filing his report, Crystal began reading one of the books. She created small light displays above the pages, illustrating the stories as she understood them. Jack found himself watching, fascinated by how she interpreted human tales through her own unique perspective. "You know," Jack said thoughtfully, "humans have their own dark history. We've made plenty of mistakes, but we're learning. Many of us believe in protecting those who need help, in standing up against exploitation." Crystal moved closer, her crystalline form refracting the station's lights into patterns across the walls. She created a series of images showing her observations of humans over the years, their curiosity, their resilience, their capacity for both destruction and compassion. "I'm not going to tell anyone about you," Jack promised, "but I'd like to help make this place more comfortable for you. Maybe bring some more books, some tools you could use. Would that be okay?" The answer came in a shower of rainbow lights, Crystal's joy manifesting in a display that filled the entire room. For the first time since she had fled her homeworld, she was allowing herself to hope for more than mere survival. As Jack prepared to leave for the day, Crystal showed him one final light pattern, a simple image of two different beings working together. The message was clear. Perhaps it was time for both of them to learn from each other. "Same time tomorrow?" Jack asked, gathering his tools. Crystal's form brightened in response, and for a moment, the entire station seemed to hum with renewed energy. Trust, like Crystal, grows one layer at a time. And in the quiet spaces of Outpost 7, something remarkable was beginning to take shape. The military vessel Seeker appeared without warning, dropping out of hyperspace near Outpost 7. Its dark hull absorbed starlight rather than reflecting it, and its design spoke of purpose rather than beauty. Captain Reed stood on the bridge, his cold eyes fixed on the station's image on the main screen. "Energy readings confirmed, sir," his science officer reported. "The signature matches historical records of luminary crystals. After 50 years of searching, we've finally found one." In the station's hidden chambers, Crystal felt the ship's arrival before she saw it. The vessel's scanning beams set her entire crystalline form vibrating with warning signals. She recognized the ship's design. It belonged to the Hunters, the same organization that had led the extinction campaign against her people. Jack was in the middle of routine maintenance when Crystal appeared beside him, her form flickering with agitation. The patterns of light she created spoke of urgent danger. Before she could explain further, the station's communication system crackled to life. "Outpost 7, this is the UES Seeker requesting immediate docking for standard inspection," a formal voice announced. The undertone of anticipation in it sent chills down Jack's spine. Crystal's form pulsed with fear as she showed Jack images of similar ships destroying her world. The hunters had developed technology specifically designed to detect and capture luminary. She had evaded them for decades, but now they were here, and their scanning equipment had grown more sophisticated. "Maintain your normal routine," Jack whispered urgently. "I'll try to handle them. They don't know I know about you." The Seeker docked with practiced precision. Captain Reed led a team of 6 officers onto the station, each carrying what appeared to be standard inspection equipment. Jack met them at the airlock, maintaining a professional demeanor despite his racing heart. "Welcome to Outpost 7, he said, checking their credentials. "I'm the maintenance engineer on duty. What brings Unified Earth Security out to this sector?" "Standard inspection," Reed replied smoothly. "We've detected some unusual energy readings. Nothing to be concerned about, but we need to perform a thorough scan." From her hiding place within the station's walls, Crystal watched as the hunters began setting up their equipment. Their scanner designs had evolved. She could feel them probing deeper into the station's structure than ever before. Her usual method of bending energy around herself wouldn't fool them for long. Jack followed the inspection team, answering their questions while trying to warn Crystal through subtle gestures when they approached her frequent hiding spots. But the hunters were methodical, their equipment growing more focused with each passing minute. "We're picking up strong readings from Section 7, one of the officers reported. Reed's eyes lit up with barely concealed triumph. "That section is undergoing maintenance," Jack interrupted quickly. "I've been recalibrating the power systems. It's probably causing interference with your equipment." Reed turned to him slowly, his expression hardening. "Engineer, are you aware that harboring a luminary crystal being is a violation of Unified Earth Security Code 2789? "I don't know what you're talking about," Jack replied steadily. "I've been maintaining this station for weeks. If there was anything unusual here, I would have noticed." But even as he spoke, one of the hunter's devices began emitting a high-pitched tone. Crystal felt her energy matrix responding to it involuntarily. The frequency was designed to force luminary into revealing themselves. "Lock down all sections," Reed commanded. "No one leaves until we found it." Jack watched helplessly as armed officers began sealing off corridors. Crystal's fear rippled through the station's power grid, causing lights to flicker. The hunters were closing in, their technology zeroing in on her location with increasing accuracy. Time was running out. Jack needed a plan, and he needed it fast. As he watched the hunters methodically searching the station, he realized that sometimes the best defense isn't hiding. It's having someone willing to stand beside you when hiding is no longer an option. Jack's mind raced as he watched the hunters sweep the station with their specialized equipment. He needed to act fast, but any obvious attempt to help Crystal would only confirm her presence. Then he remembered something from his 20 years of space station maintenance, something about the nature of systems. "Captain Reed," he called out, keeping his voice steady. "Before you continue, I should warn you about the station's power grid. It's been acting unstable lately." He pulled out his tablet, showing fabricated maintenance logs he'd quickly created. These old stations can be tricky. Meanwhile, Crystal moved through the station's structure, staying just ahead of the detection equipment. She felt Jack's intent through the power systems he was accessing. He wasn't just stalling. He was setting something up. "Sir," one of the hunter officers reported, "the energy signature is moving through Section 4, but it's becoming difficult to track. There's increasing interference." Jack had begun initiating maintenance protocols across multiple systems, creating waves of energy signatures that mimicked Crystal's patterns. Years of working with her had taught him how her energy moved, and now he was using that knowledge to create chaos in the hunter's readings. "That's the power fluctuation I warned you about," Jack said, shrugging apologetically. "These old systems generate all kinds of strange readings. Last week, I picked up what looked like a small star in the waste recycling unit." Crystal caught on to his strategy. She began synchronizing her movements with the maintenance system's pulses, making it impossible to distinguish her signature from the station's normal operations. The hunter's equipment was now showing potential luminary readings in every section. "This is impossible," Reed growled, watching as his detection equipment lit up with contradictory readings. The signature can't be in all these places at once. Jack moved to a control panel, making a show of checking readings. You know, I can try to stabilize the power grid, but I'll need to shut down some systems temporarily. Standard maintenance procedure. Before Reed could object, Jack began powering down non-essential systems in a careful sequence. With each shutdown, new energy patterns emerge, creating a complicated web of false positives that had the hunters running in circles. Crystal, understanding the plan, used her abilities to enhance the effect. She pushed her energy through the station's systems in ways that mimicked normal power fluctuations, but at frequencies that would overwhelm the hunters' sensitive equipment. "Sir, our detectors are overloading," an officer reported, frantically adjusting controls. "These readings don't make any sense." "Because you're not looking for a luminary," Jack said calmly. "You're seeing the ghost signatures of an old station's dying power grid. It happens all the time out here in deep space. The radiation affects the systems in strange ways." Reed stared at his useless equipment, frustration evident on his face. "But our initial scans clearly showed. Probably picked up the magnetic field distortion from my power coupling repairs." Jack interrupted, pulling up more falsified maintenance logs. "I had to replace 3 of them yesterday. They give off some pretty exotic energy patterns when they're charging." The hunters' search had devolved into chaos. Their equipment, designed to detect a single crystal being, was useless against the storm of energy signatures now flooding the station. Every scanner showed different readings. Every detector pointed in a different direction. Crystal, safely hidden within the walls, felt something she hadn't experienced in decades, hope born from human ingenuity. Jack hadn't just hidden her. He'd made her impossible to find by making everything look like her. "Captain," Jack said, checking his tablet, "I need to start bringing systems back online soon, or we risk damaging the station's core functions. Unless you want to explain to Central Command why a routine inspection resulted in a critical station failure." Reed looked at his confused team, their expensive equipment rendered useless by what appeared to be routine maintenance work. His jaw clenched as he realized his position. He had no proof, no clear readings, and no way to justify continuing the search. The hunters had come with their advanced technology and military precision, but they had been defeated by something they hadn't counted on: human resourcefulness and understanding of how to make chaos work in their favor. 2 weeks after the hunters' departure, Outpost 7 had returned to its quiet routine, but everything had changed. Jack sat in the main control room, drinking coffee while Crystal created intricate patterns of light that danced across the ceiling. They had turned their close call into an opportunity. "The paperwork went through," Jack announced, showing Crystal his tablet. "I've been officially assigned as the station's permanent engineer. The complex power fluctuations apparently require constant monitoring." His eyes twinkled with amusement. Crystal's form brightened with joy, creating a shower of rainbow lights that filled the room. Her ability to manipulate energy had become their greatest protection. What the hunters had tried to weaponize, she and Jack had turned into a perfect disguise. "But that's not the best part," Jack continued, pulling up another document. "Remember those alternative energy research proposals I submitted? The Science Council approved them. They're sending specialized equipment to study the station's unique power signature patterns." For the first time in her long exile, Crystal felt her fear of discovery transforming into something else: purpose. She and Jack had spent days crafting a plan that would allow her to help humanity while maintaining her safety. The station would become a research center for clean energy, with Crystal's abilities disguised as natural phenomena. "We'll help other stations develop better power systems," Jack explained, watching as Crystal experimented with new energy patterns. "Your knowledge, hidden in plain sight, helping people across the galaxy. Just like your people originally intended." Crystal created a complex light display showing her thoughts: gratitude for Jack's friendship, hope for the future, and a deep satisfaction in finding a way to honor her people's peaceful legacy. The hunters had tried to weaponize the luminaries' gifts, but now those same gifts would be used to improve lives. "There's something else," Jack said, pulling out a small device. "I modified this from the hunters' equipment. It's a warning system. If they ever come back, we'll know long before they arrive." Crystal moved closer, her crystalline form reflecting the station's lights. She had spent 50 years hiding in shadows, watching life pass by. Now, thanks to one human's compassion and creativity, she had found a way to truly live again. The station's communication system chimed. Another supply ship requesting docking clearance. Crystal didn't hide this time. Instead, she worked with Jack, using her abilities openly to guide the ship in, her energy signature now just another part of the station's unique properties. "You know," Jack said as they watched the ship dock, "humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our determination. It's our ability to see beauty in differences, to find ways to work together despite them." Crystal created a pattern of lights that mimicked the stars outside, then added small connecting lines between them, a symbol of connection, of bridges built between different worlds. She had feared humans would be like the hunters, seeking only to use her powers. Instead, she had found friendship and a chance to make a difference. As the station began another day cycle, Crystal and Jack started work on their latest project, designing new energy distribution systems that would be shared with other stations. Her crystal form glowed with purpose as she demonstrated principles her people had discovered centuries ago, while Jack found ways to translate them into technology other species could use. The hunters had wanted to weaponize her abilities, but they had failed to understand the true power of the luminary, the power to create, to nurture, to improve life. With humanity's help, that legacy would live on, hidden in plain sight among the stars. Outside the station's windows, the galaxy spun on, vast and beautiful. But now, in a small station between the stars, something remarkable had taken root. A partnership between species, a friendship that had overcome fear, and a future bright with possibility. Crystal was no longer the last hidden survivor of her kind. She had become something new, a bridge between worlds, a teacher, a friend. And in the end, that was the greatest power of all.